Okay, guys, before I hand over to Emma, it's probably worthwhile just getting very briefly some of the staff to introduce themselves, including Emma, just so that you know what type of support's in place, not just at school level, but at university level, and quite a few of our colleagues that play a part in that sort of business support role have joined us today. So feel free in the chat function at any point, any questions, just chuck them in there. If you've got any questions for anyone specifically, just post them in there and we can direct them later on. Don't worry about things like the Business Awards competition, we'll go over that in a minute. So I'll kick off. I'm Dr. Alan Murray. I'm Senior Lecturer in Enterprise in the School of Business and Creative Industries. My background's in business support, used to be a business gateway advisor. I worked with over 1,000 businesses, so I'm kind of what they call far travelled. I've been about a bit, which means I'm old. So the chances are, if you're going to start a business, you'd probably come across me or one of the team that I lead, and many of them are in this session. So Emma.
Yep. Hi everyone, and welcome to our first workshop of the Kickstart series. So my name's Emma McColvin. I'm the Student Innovation Coordinator here within UWS. So I look after the Kickstart programme, and I also deal with loads of other activities and events from our external partners that people can get involved in relation to entrepreneurship and innovation. So running today's session will be Alan, and I'll pass it on in just a few minutes. Obviously the rest of the team are going to introduce themselves as well. Just a few things before we start, just to let you know that this session will be recorded. So it's up to you whether you want to keep your camera on or off. We do encourage you to keep the cameras on though, as it will make the session a bit more interactive. We'll also aim to have a short break in between as well, so you can go away and have refreshments, go to the toilet, things like that. Also, as Alan mentioned, if you've got any questions, then you can leave them in the chat box, or if you would like to ask Alan directly or any of the team a question, just even raise your hand or say in the chat box and we can talk to you about it during this session as well. So yeah, I'll pass you on to Robert if you want to introduce yourself briefly.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. It's great to see so many people here today in the first workshop. I'm Dr. Robert Crammond, similar to Alan, also Senior Lecturer in Enterprise within the School of Business and Creative Industries. And my own background, initially from a finance background, but seen the light and went towards enterprise and in leadership and business. And I'm involved in a lot of modules related to leadership and entrepreneurship, and also a research background as well with my book and other things that we're doing related to enterprise within the university. So it's great to see you all.
Thanks, Robert. So I'll hand you over to Patrick.
Hi everyone, nice to see you all. I'm Patrick Hafshin. I work in a business development and research associate capacity within the supporting the business school and creative industries, as well as supporting the central services, so business innovation. Pleased to meet you all.
Great. And we've also been joined by Johnny Moan.
Thanks, Alan. Hello, everyone. Really excited to see you all and to get this going. This is one of the most exciting things that we do in terms of sort of student innovation across the year. So great to get started. My role is that I'm really the sort of the university sponsor for this type of activity. So I represent our executive group, our principal and our vice principals, and help to put some of our plans and strategies into action. And this is a linchpin of that in terms of what we hope we can achieve with regards to helping you to explore opportunities and to develop thinking and to come up with some great ideas. So really looking, thanks for joining us.
And lastly, just to introduce you to one of our associate lecturers, John Strachan. John's fairly typical of the sort of people that you'll find teaching you in class. We call it curricular enterprise, so it's just enterprise teaching within the classroom. So John.
Thanks, Alan. Afternoon, everyone. John Strachan here from Business Gateway. Business Gateway is my day job, I suppose. So we help start-up and existing businesses in Lanarkshire, specifically in my role. But Business Gateway helps start-up and existing businesses all throughout Scotland. I am also an associate lecturer with the business school, so kind of two hats on today, but very happy to be a part of today's session. Thank you.
Great. And there's a couple of other colleagues in here, I noticed the two Lindsays have joined, that are involved in other aspects, usually around things like career development, employability, and they've got a part to play as well. So the point is there's lots of support there in the university and the school, and all we would suggest is that you just reach out and ask. It doesn't matter who you ask. All roads from an enterprise point of view kind of lead to us anyway. We'll talk a little bit about later workshops about the support that we're putting in place, mainly around incubation. There's been a lot of work done behind the scenes to support anyone who's thinking of starting up their own business or has got an existing business that they want to develop. So there's lots of support in place, and there's a lot more coming along the line as well. So Emma, is there anything else you wanted to cover, or are you ready for me just to crack on?
No, ready for you to crack on, Alan, if you're ready.
Okay, couple of bits of housekeeping. If the technology fails, as it can do, and we're all thrown off, I would suggest that we all try and reconnect on this link for at least the next 10 minutes. If that's not possible for whatever reason, then we'll just reorganise the workshop. So don't worry about it. It's not a blue light critical thing. We'll talk about the other workshops in a minute. They can be attended standalone. We suggest that if you attend all of them, you'll be ideally placed. I'm looking at you, Gary, to develop your application. You might want to get the workshops out of the way before you hand the application in, because there'll be lots of tips and tricks to help you do that. So I'm just going to share my slides. Just give me 2 seconds. And Emma, can you let me know if you can see these? Hold on. There we go. Can you see that okay, Emma?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, guys, we know from experience that we live in a strange world now. So some people, for a variety of reasons, are not comfortable being seen on screen. That's fine. But the chat function gives you the ability to still contribute in a sort of distanced way. So what I would be asking you to do is, at any point, if you've got something to add or you've got some interest and insight, either stick your hand up. Emma and my colleagues will be looking out for any hands going up. And also I'll be keeping an eye in the chat function as well, Emma. So if you get any questions at all, just ask them as you go. And that's how we'll ensure that we get as much out of this as we possibly can. So essentially, what we are doing here at UWS is trying to, with the help of our colleagues, develop enterprising and entrepreneurial graduates. And these are people who will either go out and start their own business, or they'll add value to organisations that they don't own. And quite often that'll mean as university graduates that they're leading or managing in other people's organisations. So that's essentially what we're trying to do, to create enterprising graduates. Now, a lot of you here, that's 30 of you in this Zoom call, a lot of you here will be interested in starting your own business, but the vast majority of our students will never want to start their own business. The majority of our student body will be interested in working in other people's organisations. And we're hoping that in doing so, they'll add value to society as a whole. So that's the rationale for this. This is the first of 3 sessions. And in this session, we're really just sort of giving you some insight into how we generate ideas and how we should generate ideas. And the two things are not always the same. So the activities today in this 2-hour session, we'll probably finish on time, are designed to be practical. And we, in our what we call serious gaming, and all we're talking about doing there is using the medium of fun to make sure that we contextualise the learning. Because what the research says, and a lot of that research is our own, is that when we bring fun into the classroom, the quality of the teaching and learning goes up. And our students tell us that as well. So we're using a sort of gamification format. And you'll see what I mean by that in a minute. But we've also got some serious learning behind that. So the next 2 hours will be a mixture of theory and activities. And we'll be keeping an eye on the clock to make sure that we get in on time. So part of what we're going to be talking about today, and I'm looking for some feedback from you as well, is how not to do idea generation. And we'll talk about why this stuff's important, and we'll give you lots of tips and tricks to take your own ideas and to come up with something of value. Now, that idea might be form the basis for an entry for ideas competition, but it might just be an idea that will help you in some way develop any aspect of your life, whether that's personal, professional, or academic. And we'll certainly, throughout the course of the 3 workshops, will reflect on your own ideas. And if you're happy to share them, then we'll help you develop them as we go. So the first workshop is this one here, idea generation. Next week, we'll be building on that. We'll be talking about the process of creativity and innovation. Creativity is essentially the process by which we come up with good ideas, and innovation is the output of that. And in the last session, we'll show you how to take your idea and to put some meat on the bones. And what we'll be doing then is sharing with you some aspects of the application for the ideas competition. And that should help you present as strong an application as you can. So over the next 3 weeks, this is what we're doing. Emma, I don't know if you want to just maybe touch on the key dates. I know some of the students have been asking you about that. Just on this slide.
So the applications will open on the Monday, the 1st of March. So that's at 9 AM. Applications close round about Monday, the 12th of April at 9 AM. The next phase, if you're shortlisted for to win a prize for our competition, the finalists will be announced on Friday, the 30th of April. And then we'll have our online awards event where the winners will be announced live on Monday, the 24th. So as you can see, there's a kind of process. So you submit your application form, then the finalists get narrowed down, and then you'll basically find out who the winners are at the event, the live event. And as you can see here as well, it's open to all students at UWS, any level, any campus, and also for our recent alumni as well who have graduated within the last 2 years, you can also apply for the business competition. It's going to be lots of big prizes, so a £10,000 cash pot for everyone. There's going to be trophies, awards, and also a place on our accelerator programme for the top 3 as well. So yeah, that's
Great.
Basically that summed up.
Thanks, Emma. So just to summarise, these 3 workshops over the next 3 weeks will support the process and help you develop your idea and work that up into the application. The competition starts at the start to apply, which we know from experience is long enough. And if you need a little bit of help, then myself and my team will be on hand to help you with that. You can certainly inquire about a little bit of support on the applications to Emma, but it's likely it'll be myself and Robert and our colleague Yemi who'll be helping with that. And then it moves quite quickly. There's about 4 weeks for us to work through all the applications, and we're expecting quite a lot to shortlist the finalists ahead of the awards final the end of May. Now, we always aspire to do workshops and events face-to-face. We're still waiting on guidance, and we're watching the guidance week by week to see whether in May we'll be able to have a face-to-face event or not. Last year we held it exclusively online. We always aspire to be face-to-face, but we have to adhere to the guidance and make sure that everything's done safely and in accordance with the rules. So in trying to be as inclusive as possible, it's open to all current students in any school at any level, and also any recent graduates if they've graduated within the last 2 years. Now, this is the meat of the workshop. It's going to be something like a stream of consciousness, but if I were you, I'd be getting the paper and pen out and be writing down all these little tips and tricks. You've also got the benefit of a lot of expertise, not just of the colleagues in the room, but also from the other students as well. You've also got a lot of experience yourself, and I would ask you to share some of that experience if you're happy to throughout the course of this. So the point I would make here just to kick off is that it's really, really hard to come up with a really, really good idea. What you've been tasked to do in terms of the business competition is to come up with a good product or service that has some commercial appeal. It doesn't necessarily need to be the next big thing, but it does need to have some value. And there's an assumption that that would include some commercial value. But it's been estimated that for every 11 ideas that are generated, only one's ever going to go anywhere. So the point we're going to make today in this workshop, and we'll reinforce that in the next 2 workshops, is the best way to come up with a good idea is to generate lots of ideas. And we'll talk about that in a bit more in a minute. There's a lot of research that suggests that your brain, or one side of your brain, is geared towards the creative side of things. There's also a lot of research that says that's not true. The point is, I think most of us probably relate to the idea that we're able to move between logic and creativity. And what I'm going to do in the next 10 minutes or so is give you a series of 10 questions that will give you some insight into how the brain works, how we naturally think, and then we'll have a discussion at the end of that activity about why that's not necessarily the best way to do things, and we'll suggest better ways of doing things. And if you apply this learning to your application, I would suggest that you'll come up with a much better output. So on the one hand, we can tap into the logical side of our brain. On the other hand, we can tap into the creative side of it. Entrepreneurial and enterprising people, successful people, are able to use both sides of the brain. That's all we're saying. What I'm going to show you in a minute, and I gave some of my colleagues these 10 questions a few days ago, and they have some interesting insights to share around that. What we're saying is that most people use idea generation and creativity to solve a particular problem. And in life, these problems generally fall into one or more of these. And the examples I give you may tick more than one of these boxes. So you might have a problem that's focused in numbers, but it might also be a lateral thinking problem. I'm just going to fly through these. Maths and probability problems relate to numbers. And if, like me, you're a little bit dyslexic with numbers, you'll probably have a lot of difficulty around maths type problems. Visual spatial intelligence problems relate to the relationship in terms of the physical relationship between one thing and another. Lateral thinking problems require you to use both logic and creativity. Generally, there's more than one solution, but there's usually one satisfying solution. We're going to see examples of that in a minute. Verbal intelligence problems relate to words and speech and text. Logical intelligence problems require you to use logical thinking to get to an answer. Pattern recognition is quite a sophisticated type of problem, and usually there isn't a satisfying solution to that. And wicked problems are the sort of problems that we see in society that, again, may not have a solution to it at all. And a good example of that might be the war on terror. It might be how do we save the planet? There may not be a solution to that problem at all. And even if we solved it, we might not be aware that we've solved it. So that's just giving you a little bit of insight into how these things work. So what I want you to do is reflect on these 10 questions. And what I want you all to do is to contribute your thoughts in the chat. Now, I know I'm not going to get 100% feedback from you all, but I know I'm going to get a little bit of feedback from the staff, and I'm going to zoom in on a couple of those staff members, like a cruise missile, to get some insight into what they think about this. Now, I'm not telling you what type of problem this is, but you'll probably be able to work it out. I want you to sit and have a think about this for 20 seconds or so, and then I want to see some guesses in the chat function. I'm going to pick on one or two staff members in a minute to see what they thought. So I'm just going to give you 20 seconds just to read that and reflect on it. If you've got a paper and pen, that might be the way to solve this. There's an element of the numerical problem around this, and it's certainly a logical problem. There's a logical answer to it. So I want to see some guesses in the chat function. So Raphael's kicked off with Tuesday. Let's see what else we get. Monday, Nadia. Now, there may or may not be more than one answer, but I want to get more than two answers. This is what we call saturation of themes. Very quickly, if you click on the chat function, you'll start to see people migrating. And there seems to be some consensus around Tuesday. So, Patrick, I'm going to ask you to unmute your mic. Okay?
Okay.
Right. So, Patrick's one of my colleagues. I work with Patrick on a daily basis, whether we'd want to or not. So, Patrick, I sent you these slides 2 or 3 days ago, and you painstakingly went through the questions, and I know you did a bit of Googling because there's one or two that stumped you. Was this one of the ones that caught you out?
I think, like from my own recognition of myself, is I think that you're trained in a certain way from the way you go to school, the way for me you then go to university, the way you go about your job. So I'd say from my side, I'm more logical. So the first part of it, logically, I can work out in a pen and a bit of paper 4 days before Tuesday. What I didn't particularly like is the day after tomorrow, because you're flinging another challenge in there.
Yeah, so we know this from experience. It's quite a useful talent in your job. You're quite a logical guy. Would you agree?
Most days.
Yeah, and you like there to be a right or wrong answer. Would you agree
absolutely,
with that?
Black and white. I come from a sort of that kind of logical background, the scientific and early days studied computing. So it's either things that were always either in an on or an off status.
Yeah, so we get that, okay. And unsurprisingly, you've fallen into a career path that plays to that strength, because I would argue it is a strength. Okay, what's your answer to this one then? There seems to be some consensus. If you look at the chat function, there's a lot of consensus around Tuesday and Wednesday. I think Wednesday's out front as the leader, but there's a Lindsay, I'm not letting you away with that. Tuesday or Monday, I can't decide. Pick one.
I'm going to completely change it because it's what is today, so it's Wednesday.
Are you being influenced by everybody else's
changing
answers?
it now.
Aye.
Because I'm thinking, whereas before I was just panicked and read it, and then I was
That's
like,
okay. A lot of this stuff is about reflecting on the way that we all operate. Now, there is something about the fact that maybe innovation is beaten out of us, and maybe we're conditioned as adults to think in a different way from when we were children. Now, you're nodding, Lindsay, so obviously I've tapped into something. Give me one answer, Lindsay. What have you got?
So then what day is today? Wednesday.
Right. So the correct answer is Tuesday. But there's a degree of ambiguity in it. So you could argue it's Wednesday. It depends on what view you take about the day, this interpretation of 4 days before. You could put 4 days and then do the day, or you can make the day you're looking for the fourth day. So there's a degree of literacy around what somebody's actually trying to say in terms of the meaning in that. So there's something about that, okay? But that's a good insight into how we all work. And we're not done. We're going to move on to the next one. Now, this is looking at something quite different. So, Lindsay, I've still got you on the screen. You're making all sorts of faces when you see this one. So I'm going to read it out. You're running a race. You overtake the second person. And what position are you in? Now, guys, I'm going to ask you all, before you dive in with an answer, think before you dive in. Now, there may be more than one answer to this, or there may not. Not giving you any clues. So there's the answer starting to come in already. So we're getting a lot of people saying, there's 3 seconds already, 4, 5, 6, saturation of themes. So if you have the chat open, you'll see everybody's agreeing to the same thing. So Lindsay McMahon, you just popped up on my screen. Unmute your mic if you can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Okay, have you voted?
I'm still trying to work it out.
Right, okay. Now, this is a question. There's a little bit of logic in this, but I would argue there's a little bit of lateral thinking there. That's good, Lindsay. One ahead of where I was before could be an answer, but it's maybe not the most satisfying answer. I think Patrick would probably be okay with this, because I would argue there is only one answer. What are you going for, Lindsay?
I think initially I would have jumped to first place, but then when I've read it again, I've realised that the second, so if you overtake the second person, it sounds as if you'll be going first because they're second, but actually when you read it again, it's not the case. So I would actually say second.
That's a breathtakingly brilliant answer. You've just stolen my thunder. So that is essentially what's happened with everybody's thought process. If you just click on the chat again, see what's happened. You've got some interesting ones, like the third after the last one. That's not bad. You've got a lot of seconds, and Lindsay's doing a bit of lateral thinking here. And that's what I want you to do, guys. It's not always obvious. One ahead of where I was before, but Lindsay's absolutely right. I think we're drawn logically to we would be first, but the answer is actually we replace the second person, so the answer's second. Yeah. So there's no prize for any of this stuff. We're going to discuss at the end of this why this stuff's hard and why some people find some questions harder than others. Building on that, okay? And again, don't dive in, guys. Think about this and think about multiple answers. That's what I'm trying to get you to do. Don't just leap instinctively. It's the same race. I want you to craft your answer. Right, Kevin, unmute. Have you got a mic on, Kevin? Can you unmute your mic? Right, okay. You dived straight in there.
Yeah.
There was no thinking involved at all. You just went on instinct. So in the same race, you overtake the last person. What position are you in? Tell me what your answer is.
Second to the last.
So you overtake the last person and you are now second last. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, second to the last. No, wait.
That's it. You're proving my point. So something else just occurred to you there. What popped into your head?
How do I overtake the last person? First.
It could mean you're first, but that's not the only answer. It's not the only answer. That's why have a think about it, Ken. You're seeing, look at the chat function, and we're now as a group starting to come up with a more complete answer. So logically, yes, your answer works, but I don't think it's the only answer. So if you look at the chat, there's some interesting stuff there. That means there are two people in the race. It could be, but we can't say that. We can't say that. It depends on how many people there are in the race. You've got to restructure your answer to take account of that. I think there's one phrase that would cover all situations. Omar, are you the last? I don't think you are. I think there's a better answer to this. So I'm going to ask Robert. I'm not saying, Robert, you've got the answer, but you're quite an enterprising guy and you're quite creative. What's your answer to this, Robert?
I suppose it means if you're overtaking the last person, and I think Emma said the same here, you could be overlapping. So you could be first and then you're lapping the people that you're ahead of, or it depends if it's like last placed person, or if you've overtaken the last person, you were last, and in your mind you're overtaking the last person, you now became first. People ahead of you, and you go ahead of the last person.
There's two things there, right? So let's see if we can come up with an answer that's satisfying, that solves every eventuality. So Robert, keep your mic, test my logic here, keep your mic on, okay? We do these problems all the time, but Robert hasn't seen this one. So in the context of a race, and I want you in the chat, guys, to test my logic, give me a yes or a no if you agree with the statement I'm making. So in the context of a running race, would you agree that if you overtake the last person, that is possible? It can be done in the context of a race. Can you give me some yeses or no's, guys?
Yeah.
So Carol says no. Lindsay says no. You can overtake the last person. Do you agree, Robert?
Yeah.
How?
Well, it doesn't matter what place you are, if you're first, second, third, or fourth. In a race, if it's a circuit that's continued for a number of laps, then you could lap the last place. Or as I said, the other way you could look at it is that you could be last at the start after the first few seconds, then you've got maybe 9 or 10 people ahead of you, and then once you overtake the last person in front of you, you become first. So I suppose if it's continuous, it could be a lapping situation.
You're almost there, and I think as a group we're there. So I think the thing is, I don't know who the WSCPD centre is. I'm not sure if it's Lindsay or not. In terms of this one, you overtake the last person. So clearly the positions change. But if you overtake the last person in the context of a race, you've lapped them. So the answer must be not that you were first, because you might not be the only person who overtakes that person. You could potentially then find yourself in any position in the race other than last. Now you're nodding, Robert. Does that work?
Yeah, because it's just the case if you see with like Formula One, for instance. After a few laps, you'll get a good few dozen possibly lapping at the head of the race. Yeah.
So there's something about that. You could always make the case that people are running side by side. But the point is, if you overtake the last person, then you could be in any position because you've lapped that person. You're just not, you could be any position other than last. You're nodding, Robert. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and I'm also nodding at what Johnny's just saying here as well. That I think he said could be the last person you overtake, but that person might not be last, or it could be literally just in the context of the previous 20 seconds.
That's also good, Johnny. I've not seen that one before. I've used this once or twice. I've not seen that one before as well. That's also good. I would say that's a satisfying answer as well. You overtake the last person, but that doesn't necessarily say they were last in the race. So there's a degree of ambiguity around this, but there always is in any of these problems. So Robert, you're off the hook. So guys, again, don't dive into this one. I think we're in the realms of what we said with the first race question. You'll logically, instinctively be drawn to a particular answer here. but there's a better answer if you sit and think about it. Okay, so I know what you're going to be thinking. I know what I'm going to see. I'll probably still see it in the chat, but I'm asking you to think a little bit more critically. So when a lecturer says be more critical, they want you to be more reflective and deeper and have thought of other options. That's what they're actually saying when they say they want you to be critical. So again, this is insight into how you operate in terms of problem solving, creative thinking. So I want to see some suggestions in the chat, guys. I'm not going to pick on you if you come up with an answer that might not be right. What can you put in a wooden box that would make it lighter? This is a creative thinking one. John, I'm not letting you away with that. So John Strachan, jump on.
There's only
what
a
are you talking about?
Put a light in it to make it lighter. It's dark in a box.
It's not bad. There's a degree of ambiguity about it. It's not bad. I would argue that that meets the definition. I would argue that there's a more satisfying answer, though it's maybe a bit more mainstream.
Yeah,
have you got another one, John?
You usually say that to my answers anyway, Alan.
Aye.
What else? Helium?
How would that make it lighter?
Stick some balloons in the end, we can lift it up.
No, it doesn't ask it. So, but you wouldn't be the only person that would say that. So, Raphael, have you got a mic?
Yes. Yes, I have.
So what's your suggestion?
I said magnets because you can just attach them and they attach to a metal. So basically they are inside, but they are making the wooden box lighter. I don't know.
How do they make it lighter?
Because the magnets attach to metal. So if they are inside and they can attach to metal, basically they are lifting the box. So actually the box is lighter.
I don't think from a science point of view, I'm no scientist, I don't think that works. I don't think the gas option works either. Emma makes a good point. Do you mean lighter as in weight? I didn't set the question. Yeah, I didn't come up with the question. But interestingly, any solutions around things like torches and candles you've got would meet the definition of it. But we've got a couple of correct answers here. I would argue satisfying answers. Craig, have you got a microphone? Craig Burns.
Yes, I do.
So did you quickly come up with that solution?
Yes, it was a lucky guess if it is right.
Not at all, no. It suggests something different. Do you see yourself as quite a creative guy, Craig?
Yeah, I think so.
Right, straight away. What type of, you're a student at UWS, are you?
I'm UWS Lanarkshire Year 3.
Doing what?
Business.
Right. Is creativity quite important? Come up with ideas that value different ways of doing things. Do you think it's quite important?
My background's in engineering, so we always had to think of different ways of doing things.
Yeah, so you're wired to come up with solutions. Would you agree?
Yeah, I used to work with ScotRail, so we always had holes in the trains. So I thought straight away that'll make that lighter.
Well, that makes me feel quite uncomfortable because I'm getting the train home today. But in terms of that, again, you've found yourself in a sector, an industry where you're quite comfortable with the idea of problem solving and generating ideas. Yeah. So project management skills rely on creativity, and we usually use creativity to innovate, come up with new ways of doing things. That's what we do. So that's quite. You came up with that quite quickly, did you?
Yeah. That was. I've obviously got more brains than I thought there. Or I got
well,
lucky.
Let's find out how much brains you've got. So stay on the mic, Craig. So question 5, again, guys in the chat. I want you to come up with things. That's a good one, Mohammed. I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to have a think about that one. Whether a vacuum would work. I'm going to Google that one. So let me see, guys. Again, don't dive in. Don't go with the instinctive idea. Let's look at question 5. You've got 2 coins totaling 11 pence, and one of the coins is not a penny. What are the 2 coins? I want you to have maybe half a minute. Craig, I'm going to come back to you first in a minute. Okay, so you've probably got an answer already, have you? I'm not saying it's right.
Do you know what? I don't know why I'm saying 5 pence. I think there was an economics question like somewhere that somebody put up. It was a famous economist. Was it if you've got so much and so much, how have you got £111? Or I can't remember.
I'm not letting that one go. You need to Google that while we're on screen and come back with that because I'm sure there's a wee bit of learning we can tease out of that one. This one here, though, is probably likely to suit you because it's actually not a numerical problem. It's a lateral thinking problem again. So we're starting to get a little bit more sophisticated here. We're getting into situations where logic isn't going to get you the answer, really. You have to think a little bit outside the box. Yeah. So guys in the chat, I want to see that saturation of themes. Chris, I like your point. The questions need more specificity. Nothing specific in life, and it's certainly not specific in the world of business. Patrick, can you unmute your mic?
Yeah.
Right. So Patrick, you've had a long career in business and supporting businesses. You worked for some big companies like IBM and stuff, and you worked at them at a time when they were breaking ground. Yep. Would you agree? Right. What about that phrase, which I think is a good one that Chris came out with? The questions need to be more specific. Surely in the world of business, nothing's specific. It's always ambiguous. There's always multiple meanings.
Yep,
multiple
I think that's why they come up with principles such as ways of managing projects that I've went through. So it might be something like APM, Association of Project Managers, or what I was exposed to in IBM was Prince 2, was to channel your thoughts along probability and security, and this sort of mechanism of this is what we think it is, and then building a reporting structure, which was you were allowed to have tolerance levels or deviance levels that would be set for you. So typically IBM would set it at 10%. So if you're managing a project, you're allowed to go 10% either way of the project running, because they know you're going to run into problems that nobody foreseen.
So you're saying that a big, huge world-leading companies, where IBM at the time, actually put a value on that. 10% can't be predicted. We need 10% margin for stuff that we can't predict. Is that what you're saying?
Well, at a project management level for the projects I was working in, I don't know what the other levels would be, but it was typically 10%. So there was a definition of what had to be achieved, what was agreed by the customer, when dates it had to be delivered by. So there's all these factors are put in there, and if the world was unchangeable and worked according to a machine calculation or a mechanism, this is what should happen by this date, and would allow you 10%. But that 10% wouldn't always help you. The 10% would just be flagging up problems. You might run into sort of bigger problems than that.
Yeah, so that's a good example. So Chris, have you got a mic? Chris Grayson? No. So the point here is, okay, most of the people have got the answer getting to the end if you look in the chat function, right? So Chris, post up in the chat if you agree with us. What we're actually saying here is nothing's certain. There's no right or wrong answer in any situation at all. Nothing's binary, nothing's black and white. So you guys, you students are the great hope. You're the mechanism, sorry, Chris, you're the mechanism for dealing with the ambiguity, the uncertainty. Would you agree with that, Chris? You can use the chat. Does that make sense to you? What we're trying to get across in this, what we're trying to get across in the world of work and business is make sure that you're equipped for what you're going to find in the world of work. And what you're going to find is an awful lot of uncertainty. So a really good point, Chris, as well. So I think we've got the answer. Emma, I think you might have been the first that got it. Can you unmute your mic, Emma?
Yeah. So I said 10 pence and 1 pence.
So you came up with this answer. Did you get it fairly quickly?
No. It took me a while because right away I just thought, right, so it's not 1 pence, but I didn't think that it's just one coin that's not a penny. So obviously the other coin could be a penny. So right away I was like, that how does that add up? Because there's no way you could get that with 2 coins. It's not, one's not a penny.
We can't see past this because of the way our logical part of the mind, our brain is leading us to that. We can't see past it. Would you agree?
Yeah, for me anyway, yeah.
So this is probably the best one we've got to explain this thing, the difference between logic and creativity. You need to do both. Now, I'm going somewhere with this. We're talking about the Business Awards competition. I'm going somewhere with this. I'll contextualise this. I'll bring it all back in a minute, but we're not done. So most of you got that one. We're not done yet. This is a problem concerned with words and text. So have a look at that. Now, our brain sees patterns, and there's a pattern here. There's clues in what you're seeing here, but that might not necessarily lead you to a solution. So you have to use that lateral thinking, creative side of your brain. And we've already touched on the fact that maybe we're conditioned to not think that way. We think that way as kids, and we're not bothered about saying what we think out loud, whereas as adults, we know that we have challenges around that as well. So I want you to give me specific answers here, guys, in the chat function, okay? So I think what we'll probably do is we'll get a few suggestions, but they're probably not going to be right. And then as we get more suggestions, somebody will come up with what is actually the right answer. Yeah, we'll have a short break around 2 okay. So I'm going to give you a minute or so just to type your answer. That's not bad. Is that Lee, is it? So Lee, I'm not letting you away with that. You have to explain what a palindrome is roughly.
So a palindrome is where a word is spelt the same way backwards as it is forwards.
And you're saying this isn't that, but it's close to that. Is that what you're saying?
It's not quite that, but like I can kind of see it.
That's a very cool answer, Lee. So your brain's seeing some pattern.
Yeah.
You've come across this palindrome thing, which is a word that's read the same way in each direction, but you know it's not that, but it's close to that. So you've got a partial solution there. Would you agree?
Yes.
Craig jumped in straight away after it and said the same first letter on both sides of the words. That's not it. But between both of these, you've almost got the answer. You've almost got a complete answer.
Is it if you put the first letter at the end, it's still the same?
That's very good. It's read, you can read it the same word in the other way. Now, that's unusual. You don't see it a lot in the English language. I did a wee bit of research in this one because I could see the pattern. I was looking for questions we hadn't used in any of our modules. That's a good explanation, Lee. But do you see how you had a partial solution? Somebody jumped in after you. We talked about it, and then you come up with a solution. Do you get that, Lee?
Yep, makes sense.
Yeah, now we're going to talk about this in a little bit more detail in a minute, but the point is that you shouldn't really be doing creativity and idea generation on your own. You need diversity, male, female, young, old, different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different genders, because if you don't, you've only got what you bring to the party, which isn't as much as if you're working with other people. And the average group size to do creativity and idea generation is always about 4 to 6. So we've got the answer. Now, we've got some other suggestions coming in at the end, but the correct solution, the satisfying solution is that if you take the first letter of any of these words and you make it the last letter, it reads backwards the same as it did before you moved any letters. Yeah. Now, some people like me I got this one straight away because in being a little bit dyslexic with numbers, and it's held me back, I've got a real talent with words. And I see that. It leaps out to me as if it's written in neon. So these ones favour me. Okay, but what we're saying here is you shouldn't be doing this stuff on your own because you've only got what you bring to the party. Now, this is absolutely a black and white creativity question, but it also requires a little bit of logic to solve it. So I want you to have a think about this one. Now, guys, again, I'm trying to get you to not jump in with an instinctive answer. I'm trying to get you to think about other potential answers. It's like the idea of coming up with the idea for a new business. That's really hard. I was a business advisor with Business Gateway for 5 years. I worked with over 1,000 businesses. Everybody was looking for the next big thing, but most of the people came in with the same thing. John Strachan, can you unmute your mic?
Yep.
How many businesses have you worked with as a business advisor, John?
Countless. Probably, 2 years as a startup advisor, probably about 300-400, and currently live about 150, 160 just now based in Lanarkshire.
And you're now a business growth advisor, so you're dealing with existing businesses that you probably didn't help to start.
Yep.
So you see all shapes, all sizes, all sectors, would you agree?
Absolutely.
Right. How many of them, in your view, out of those 500 businesses were the next big thing? How many of them were genuinely revolutionising anything?
Less than 1%.
There you go. So that's the point that we're making about this. Coming up with really, really good ideas for anything, including businesses, is really hard. And you're getting it straight from the horse's mouth. And all the businesses that I helped, most of them were doing kind of the same thing. But you'll see innovation, John, there. They'll still be innovating in other ways. Would you agree?
Yeah, they usually innovate on top of things that have been done before to make it better, depending on what the market needs are or changes to how people approach things. So, yeah, that tends to be where the innovation comes from.
So that's the thing I'm interested in. So if all the students here are thinking about coming out an application for the ideas competition, which you again will be one of the judges, I'm hoping this year. So in terms of that, how can they be innovative? It's hard to come out with a completely new business idea. We all get that. But how can they show innovation because the competition requires it? What aspects of the business model can they be innovative in?
Yeah, well, they have to look at how people operate with businesses now. I mean, think of the impacts of things like COVID and how that's maybe changed our approach to businesses. Things like Just Eat have obviously exploded, you know, with people looking for different ways to interact with the restaurant trade, or, you know, it's all around how the markets operate and, you know, how the individuals look to source their products, their service. That's certainly been a massive area for growth over the past couple of years. So certainly looking at something like that.
And in session 3, we'll be talking about the business model. And a lot of researchers take the view there's 9 different elements of the business model. Some of them are focused on price. Some of them are focused on how you interact with people. But the point is you can be innovative in any of these 9 components. So you can have a coffee shop doing pretty much the same as everybody else, but you can innovate around the price, around the look and the feel, around the range of products. There's lots of different ways that you can still show that innovation. But now, if we look at this question, okay, John, did you get this one straight away since you're still on the screen? Did you get this one?
My first thought that the chat was in front of the line break, then realised when I moved the chat function that was an option I couldn't do. So I think most people have said it now is potentially getting rid of the cork in some way in the bottle, either by pushing it away or by burning it.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually seen this one done in a pub. It's one of those classic pub games as well. So a lot of people got it, and Rebecca got it. And then Lindsay said, I agree with Rebecca as well, having seen it. Lindsay McDonald, did you not come up with the answer yourself?
Well, no, I was thinking about it, and I was trying to visualise how I would get it out. So the only way we'd do it was get rid of the cork and then try and get it out, whether you fill it with water to empty it out or shake the coin out. That was the only thing I could think of.
So you maybe had parts of the solution, but when you saw Rebecca's answer before, you thought that's it. So you knew a solution when you saw it, yeah? Would you agree?
Yeah.
And a few of you have got it now. If I went through them, there's maybe 1 or 2 others that we could maybe have a look at that might be a partial solution or might be another solution. But Rebecca's one is a satisfying one, where you push the cork into the bottle, turn it upside down and shake it out. And I've done it, I've done just to prove that it works. You can do it. You got it in so you can get it back out. So that's another good example. Some people get to a solution like that very, very quickly. Some people don't. Now, this is one of the spatial ones I'm talking about, where it's the relationship between the pieces of the puzzle and the place that you want to put it. It's just like a small jigsaw. Now, guys, I'm only going to give you one answer at this. Okay, so Lindsay, if you're looking for 2 or 3 answers, you'll tease it. Which one is it? There is only one answer to this one. And before you do it, just take that extra 20 seconds, everybody, and just check them all. Craig dives in again. Craig, are you an instinct guy? Do you always go with your gut?
So I know what it is. I've got a Huawei computer as well, and I have to foot a boot up here, so I thought I better do it soon before people think I'm trying to reach through the screen to them.
So, but you got that straight away. What is your answer?
B, I think. I need to move that, sorry. I don't think it is B, in fact, now that I look at it.
Okay, so taking off 30 seconds, did you dive in on instinct?
Yes, because I knew it was upside down, and I looked at A and I went, it's not A, and then because that's not lined up properly. In fact, wait a minute. Aye, because it's got to be lined up. So it's just, I used to have to do that, things like that in shapes for engineering. So it just.
I was going to say, Craig, you're an engineer. You should be looking at this, and you should be right. You should be tip of the spear. You should be right out there. So I'm looking at the chat function, Craig. And don't go with the flow. There seems to be some consensus around. So we've got, I'm seeing which has got the most votes. 3 Bs and a C. Someone's got E, C. We've got all of them there. They've all been suggested. But there seems to be, I would say C is out in front ahead of B. What do you think, Craig?
Yes. So that's the reason your train's always late, because I probably put a B in instead of
Well, you need to be working your idea generation skills. I think you need to be working in groups for that one. So the answer is C. Now, some people, again, just have this talent. They look at it and it instantly leads them to the answer. Some of them are quite similar, but some of them don't look anything like the hole that you're trying to put it in. But you should be getting clues here about the way your mind works and the way that you're wired. This is absolutely a lateral thinking one. Now, our head of business and innovation, Johnny Moan, has run quite a successful business himself, and probably more than one, I guess, over his career. Johnny, I'm going to ask you about this one. Have you seen this one before?
No, I haven't, no.
Right, so it's the first time you've seen it. Would you agree?
Yes.
Right, I'm absolutely going to put you on the spot for this one. So is there an obvious answer? Are you very quickly doing the numbers here?
Uh-huh.
Right. Have you come up with an obvious solution?
Not quite yet, but I'm working on it.
Right, so it's not a numerical problem. This is one for all of you as well. Some people are going to get this. I'd expect the first answer probably to come in the next 30 seconds, but I would expect a lot of us would struggle with this one. Now, I got it, but then I teach a lot of this stuff. So I've seen similar things before. You've got to remember, guys, that one of the things... Have you got it?
Yeah.
Right, I'll come to you in a minute, Johnny. One of the things that we do is we look for inspiration when we encounter a problem about what we've learned before. And people like Johnny, the reason I asked you, Johnny, is I'd expect you, I know your history, to be fairly creative. And I wondered if you'd come up with a satisfying solution. But before you come up with the answer, I just want to give the group a chance now. No one's suggested anything yet. 5, 13 and 11 won't get you there. So that's not a satisfying answer. I bet you're not the only one who suggested that. 7, 13, and that takes you to 35. So I'm just doing, 31. So guys, it has to be 30. 29 and 31 don't cut it. So we've got a few suggestions people putting up there. If it's not 30, it's the wrong answer. Now, we're not getting a lot of answers here, and we're not getting the right ones. Johnny, do you think you've got the right answer?
You know, you made me think again here, Alan.
Can I ask a question, Alan?
Go on.
Can I ask a question? Can you have more than one ball in one box?
No, but that's a good one now. Is that Janet, is it?
It is, yeah. Sorry, I'm walking, so I can't be on the screen.
No, it's all right, Janet. See what happens? This is why we try and work in groups. Now, Janet's thrown a question out there. Now, that's not necessarily going to get you to the answer, but we're excluding potential options, so we're narrowing the field. Any input's good. That's why we need to do this stuff in groups. So no, it needs to be, you can only use one ball in each of these things once. I've not been asked that one, Janet. I used this one once or twice, but that's a good question. And I'll use it next time I teach this one. So when you ask questions and you talk it through, you get closer to a satisfying solution. But Johnny, have you got one? We're putting you on the ropes. Have you got one?
You know, I'm getting a bit blinded by the fact that I'm desperate to multiply things rather than add them. So I've got 30 with a number of different multiplications. But the adding part,
can you turn 6 and 9 up? Like, can you turn 9?
Oh, that's brilliant. If there was a prize, you'd be getting it, Lindsay. My work here's done. So talk me through that. What are the
I haven't got that far yet. I'm just kept looking at 9 going, can I turn it upside down? Because it's definitely a 6. Right,
yes,
okay,
you can.
that's fine.
Yes, you can. So you work with numbers all the time, Lindsay. I know what you do for a living here. So can you pick out the numbers you need? So what you're saying is this 9, you turn it upside down and you make it a 6?
Yeah. The only reason I'm thinking that is because when we do a gym class, they put numbers down and they always have to put a line under the 6 or the 9 so you get it the right way up. That's what we're thinking. That doesn't have a line, so you could make that a 6.
Now see that, Lindsay? That's what you brought to the party.
That's
you've seen it. You've got some learning.
After that.
Well, look at that. So I would suggest, right, if that's a 6, somebody give me the other 2 numbers that would take
13
to 30.
and 11.
Yes. So together, Lindsay, you come up with a complete solution, a satisfying solution. So the 9 becomes a 6, and you add the 11 and the 13, and you didn't get it on your own, but in a group, even though the group's 2, you come up with a satisfying solution. Does everybody get that? Yeah. That's why we do this stuff, because it's really, really important that you get diversity into the room. That's what we're talking about, yeah? So I'm just looking at that chat comment. There's something interesting come up there. Pool balls, yeah, that's it, yeah. So moving on to the last one. This is arguably the most sophisticated. And there is only one satisfying answer to this. So we're on time. We'll be a couple of minutes over. Don't go away and Google this. I'm probably going to leave this one hanging so I don't muck up Emma's timings, because we want to move on to the next one in a minute. So I'm going to leave this one, I think, on the screen, and we'll have a break. Emma, do you want us back at 2:10? Is that good for you, Emma?
Yeah, 10 minutes. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, guys, so see if you go away and Google this. This is not an exercise in seeing how good you are with a search engine. I want you to come back with the solution. Feel free to work in a group and ask anybody in the space that you find yourself in. But I want you to come back with a satisfying solution to that. But don't Google it. Okay, it defeats the whole purpose. Okay, so you can go away. Just feel free to turn your cameras off if you want. Make sure your mics are all muted, and we'll see you back here at 2:10. Okay. Okay, we're getting some answers in, so let's just crack on. So, a couple of answers in the chat, and I want you all to have a look at that and see whether you think one or both of them would work. So those two answers are the satisfying solutions to that problem. I can decide not to ask any of them and go around, it's not a satisfying solution. Need a bit more than that. Ask them to join my journey. That's not going to tell you either. It's not going to confirm anything, but you're getting there. I mean, what we want to do is get all these questions out the way, and in doing so, it will take us to a satisfying solution. That's how we do idea generation well. No, it doesn't answer. It doesn't provide a solution to the question. It's got to be something a little bit more surgical. It requires a little bit of thought. I wonder if we're going to see a solution to this one. Yeah, you ask them something, but what do you ask them? There's one question that if you ask them based on what you know, that will give you the answer you're looking for. It'll tell you the truth. That's also a good point. You don't know who says the truth and who tells the lie. If you ask the right question, it doesn't matter. That's not going to work. Point to one path and ask if this is the right path that leads to happiness. You don't know which one's lying, which is the point before. You're getting closer, though. That will be your one question, though, Rebecca. If you ask which brother tells lies and which tells truth, you only got one question. If you ask them which is a liar, you can't ask which way to go. No. Oh, Lindsay McMahon, unmute your mic. You get your mic on, Lindsay?
Yeah, I've got it on.
Right, I'm just going to read that one out. You'd ask the liar and do the opposite.
Right,
okay?
So first I'm thinking, right, well,
You're
if the liar tells me something, then I'm going to do the opposite, and then I know that's the right way. But how would we actually know who was the truth teller and who was the...
If you ask the right question, it doesn't matter. Right, so go on.
I don't know if you would ask something like, what would the other person do? Because
so you came to that solution, and Lindsay also came to that solution as well as you were saying that, but we only got it because you started speaking. So my point is this: if one person tells the truth all the time and one person tells lie all the time, and we don't know which one is which, if we ask them that question, what would the other person say? The person that tells the truth is going to tell you what the liar would say. The liar is going to tell you what the other person would, the opposite of what the person telling the truth. So they both say the same thing, and that would be true. Do you get that? And that is quite a sophisticated one. And you're only going to get a solution to that when you actually start to talk through your ideas. The problem with this sort of stuff, though, is that we're quite embarrassed quite often about saying stuff, and we're kind of conditioned to think that there is only one right or wrong answer, and we're quite nervous about the idea of showing ourselves up, particularly it's a Scottish thing, okay? No, I'm not going to write it down, Omar, because I'm on the clock, but what I will say is this: if one person always tells the truth and one person always lies, the question you would ask them is, what answer would the other person give to which road leads to happiness? One person is going to tell the truth, the other person's a liar, the other person's going to lie, and the answers will be the same, and that's the truth.
So you need to take the opposite. You need to do the opposite of what they say.
Are you asking me or telling me?
I think I'm telling you. You have to do the opposite.
Do you get the logic, Johnny?
Completely. I put it in earlier on that you have to take the opposite route from what the answer they give you, because they both tell you effectively.
Yes, absolutely. And it doesn't matter. You have to understand that the answer they give you will be a lie, but it will be the same. Yeah. And it also then doesn't matter which one was lying or telling the truth, because you understand what allowed them to make that decision. Yeah. So that's quite good. But again, we wouldn't have got that solution on our own. Yeah. Okay. So my point is this: what did we learn from this? Okay. And I want to see some feedback in the chat. I'm not necessarily going to pick on you. I would argue, and I want to see some yeses or nos here in the chat from you. Would you all agree that we got better solutions as a group, particularly with the more challenging questions? Can we get some yeses or nos in the chat about that? Would you agree with that point? Saturation of themes. So everybody's saying yes just there. Yeah. Do we understand that there is more, again, some yeses or nos? Do we understand that there's invariably, even when we're talking about numbers, there's probably more than one satisfying solution? Can we understand that as well? Yes. Yeah. So no one's saying no. I'm interested if somebody says no. Don't be afraid to put up a no. I'm going to ask you to justify it, but don't be afraid to swim against the stream. Enterprising people often do that. Yeah. But the point is this: we didn't just come up with one answer. We came up with multiple answers, and that's the point that we've got to pick on just now. But before they do that, we have to be able to understand what a good idea looks like. So I'm just going to write on my whiteboard here on the screen. I want us to pull. That's good, Lindsay. Don't jump in with answers. Think more critically. So, Lindsay, I'm going to pull you up about that one. We're quite guilty in academia of telling students when we're marking to be more critical. Now, I've given my idea of what critical means. What do you think it means, Lindsay?
I think it's about looking at different perspectives and different viewpoints.
It's a lot easier to do that if you're doing this idea generation exercise with other people who have different viewpoints and different perspectives. So that's quite important. Okay. So, Lindsay, give me one to start off with since you're on the screen. And there's no right or wrong answer to this one. What makes a good idea? You and I talk all the time about how we could do things better. We're always looking at good ideas. We've been doing it for a few years. So give me one thing. How do we know a good idea, recognize a good idea when we see it? What makes a good idea?
I would say it's maybe something that's not been done before, something that's different from other things that might be out there.
Can I put down new just for the sake of it? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So one thing you all need to know about me, if I'm ever going to be teaching you, is I'm left-handed and I'm lazy. I'm a lazy writer. Not a lazy lecturer, but I'm a lazy writer. So I write like a serial killer. So if you can read my writing, good luck. But it's more for me, so I know what we've covered. So John Strachan, give me another one. What makes a good idea?
Something that makes experience better.
That's good. Give me an example.
Something for a customer, maybe a product that makes it easier to use.
So, so you're talking about rather than just setting up a coffee shop, you're going to set up a coffee shop that gives a customer a better experience. Right. So you're saying something like it does something better. Yeah. So I'm going to put that down. I know my writing's terrible. It's okay. So somebody put something that displaces, again, it's this. It displaces what was in the market before. So the sort of thing again. So guys, keep the suggestions coming in the chat. An improvement. So it improves on something. Okay, so I'm going to put that up. What else, guys? Robert, you teach this stuff?
I would say, well, I was thinking about added value, but that obviously ties in with it does something better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it meets the market gap. And the idea of, well, it's captivating and exciting. It's something that draws maybe a wider customer base, so it excites.
That's good. So something excites, yeah? And you're talking about creating a pool with a customer.
Yeah.
This is the stuff, everyone, that you should be getting into your application. It might just be a coffee shop, but this stuff on the screen is what you mean, Kariga. It can be measured. Okay, I think this measurable thing's important. Now, the application itself is quite smart, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. So when you're filling in the application, it's designed to draw out all of these things. And you could probably do a good application in maybe 45 minutes, but it'd be better if you applied this thinking. Lindsay, it's interesting as well. So I'm putting all this stuff in. So even, guys, if you've got a grounded idea like a coffee shop, you can still innovate in any of the business components, but you can also think about the stuff. You're all consumers that everybody's talking about. Just look at the last one. Gary, you just put technology floating there. What do you mean? Do you mean that it cleverly uses technology? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, not really. If you look at businesses that are out there just now, they're sort of engaging a lot in technology. So moving forward in technological aspect, a lot of businesses could do much better with implementing that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of research that says if you're going to launch a successful technology business, I saw a few, but not a lot when I was at Business Gateway, then 1 in 6 million technology ideas make it to market. Now, that isn't to say you couldn't be the one, but the point is, in the same way that the benefits in the technology sector, technology entrepreneurship is one of the key areas of entrepreneurship. Business, technology, social, and corporate are the 4 main areas. Technology is huge. That's where the big rewards are, but it's also where the big risks are in terms of. Now, you're nodding, Gary. Do you agree with that?
I do, yeah.
So you're thinking that, remember, just to clarify that, because we're going to see a lot of technology ideas in this competition. Technology businesses are ones where either it uses technology to such an extent, if you took the technology out, there wouldn't be a business, or it makes technology, so it's the product, it's the service, it's embedded in it, or it's a mixture of both, like Apple, it's a technology user and a technology maker. No problem, sorry, listen for a second, no problem with you coming up with a technology idea for this business. We are sophisticated enough to see the potential in it. Do you get that, Gary? You're still on my screen. So if you come up with a tech idea, don't be put off by it. We're not looking for massive amounts of detail. We just need to understand these 3 components that I'm going to show you right now. Now, if you go through our modules, you are going to be sick of hearing about these 3 aspects, and that's the way we want it, okay? So your idea, if you're going to start a new business, or if you're just going into the business competition like Gary is, you need to tick these 3 boxes. Desirability means that your product is attractive enough that somebody would want to pay for it. That's it. Viability means that you could afford to make it, excuse me, and sell it at a price that would generate a surplus. And even social enterprises need to do that. Feasibility means that the technology exists for you to actually do it. So if you're talking about building a flying car, you probably could do it, but you'd probably be using drone technology because that technology is grounded and exists, okay? Which of these 3, desirability, viability, or feasibility, which are all important, which is the most important? Which is the starting point for this? They're all important for different reasons. One of them is more important than the others, and it should be your starting point. Which is it? In the chat function, guys. So somebody said desirability. Is that the only answer? Desirability. Again, we're seeing saturation of themes, guys. Viability, Lindsay, viability, Carol. So if you look at that, okay, saturation of themes, we're kind of split around desirability and viability. So the attractiveness and the money bit of it. So Robert, you teach this stuff. You tell us which is most important and why, Robert. Which of these 3 is most important? Why?
I would have said, well, yes, you wanted to be desirable, that there's potentially a captive market, and yes, you could do the costings of it. But I would say first and foremost that to keep it fairly grounded, or to be realistic, I would say that feasibility is the most important. Is it something that can get off the ground? Because you could have a feasible product or service, and then you can then mold it towards a certain customer base. So I would say feasibility is the most important. with a view to then having a captive market and then looking at the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, Robert and I haven't talked about this, but there's two schools of thought here. Generally, there are people who think that if the product isn't desirable at all, no one's going to buy it. So it doesn't matter whether you can make it or not. But there's also a school of thought that says if the thing can't physically be done, then we shouldn't be looking at it. But then if you look at highly entrepreneurial people running highly entrepreneurial organizations, and Virgin is a cliche, but it's a good example, they, in order to get tourists into space, they had to build technology that didn't exist. Now that's fine if you're like Virgin and you can get all the resources together. So when you go down the sort of scale of hierarchy of businesses and you look at organizations that don't have those sort of resources, you start to be more drawn towards feasibility. If you were to pick one, my view would probably be like some of you are saying, we'd focus on whether people would want it or not. But Robert's right. It's kind of split between desirability and feasibility. The point we would make about viability, but some of you have said it's the most important. It is important, but as you'll learn from me and my colleagues, you can always change the financial model of the business and come up with better ways of making money. You can put your price up, you can sell more stuff, you can get your costs down. So you can quite often do stuff around viability. Yeah. John Strachan, you're working with businesses day in, day out. Do you agree with what I've just said, John?
Yes, absolutely. Although really you don't have a business unless it is viable. So we always get kind of hung up on the viability point, more so towards the end. But absolutely, we would start by asking about a feasibility plan before they go off and do anything.
Yeah, before they actually do the work, just make sure it's doable. Would you agree, John, to stay on that this is where the viability bit, the numbers and the financial stuff is where most people struggle?
Yeah, absolutely. Because they tend to do their research based on their family members telling them it's a good idea. So they don't come back with kind of proper grounded information. They go out with a kind of blue sky thinking that it's going to work.
I know it's going to work. I used to hear all the time, or it must work. No one else is doing it. Okay, one of the things I used to say is no one else is making igloos in Hamilton because nobody wants them. So the absence of a product in a market, don't make that mistake, doesn't imply that there's a market for that business. It doesn't follow. The next box you want to tick, guys, this is really, really important. Again, we beat you to death with this in our enterprise modules, and rightly so. There's 3 different types of idea. Grounded is where the idea is everywhere. So a coffee shop. So it's everywhere, or you feel that it should be everywhere, but you haven't seen it. Spaced out is where someone comes out with an idea that on the face of it, and I'm going to show you a few examples in a minute, it looks as if it's so ridiculous it couldn't happen. Where you want to be is blue sky, which is where it's probably relatively grounded, but it's got a little bit of spaced out in it. And that's what separates you from everybody else. That's how you get your unique selling proposition, your USP, as we talk about it all the time, or what we sometimes call your value proposition. We'll talk about that a lot more in session 3. So you want to be ticking all these boxes, and you really need to start with this, either this or this. And we'll help you with this because most people struggle with the numbers, and you really want to be in the blue sky space. And that's all I'm going to say at this point about that. If anyone wants to know more about this, we've got some digital seminars that we can show you, but we'll be talking about this a bit more in sessions 2 and 3. So those are the things that you need. In order to come up with good ideas along those lines that tick all those boxes, you need to come up with lots of ideas, and we're going to do that right now. And I've got an exercise that we use all the time, and you'll do similar things in our modules because you can't do enough of this stuff, but you won't see this particular one. This is a tried and tested creativity exercise that we use all the time, okay? So what I want you to do is this, okay? When I talk about a pencil, I'm talking about that little, okay, hold on, wait, there we go. So later on, we're going to talk about this stuff in a little bit more detail, but I want to show you how this stuff actually works. So this little sketch that I've drawn of the, thanks, John, thanks for jumping in. Sorry, there you go. Can you see that now, Johnny? Yeah, it wasn't screen sharing for some reason. So this one here, okay? Did you see this one here?
Pencil one.
Did you see that one before? I think it was a problem with screen sharing. Can you see it now?
You see the pencil one, yeah.
Right. Did you see the desirability, viability, feasibility one? Did you see it before?
Yeah.
Right. So these are things: desirability, viability, feasibility, and we want to be in this blue sky space, which is this one here, which means there's something novel or new about it. And you guys were all highlighting these things as being important. We're now talking about how we do this. Okay, so you can see the pencil one now, Johnny, can you?
Yes.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is this, guys, right? When I talk about the pencil, it's a basic pencil. There's no rubber on it. It's just this simple, the simplest basic pencil you can have. What I want you to do in the next 5 minutes is come up with as many ideas, excluding writing with it. You can't have writing implement because it is a pencil. I want you to stop thinking of it as a pencil, which is hard, and start thinking about the other properties that it has and what you would use this pencil for if you're on a desert island, for example, or if you're in Sauchiehall Street on a Saturday night at 3 o'clock in the morning. What would you use that pencil for? And try and keep it clean, guys, if we can as well. So I'm looking for as many ideas as you can, but I'm going to tell you what we're going to see because I see it all the time. Now, I gave this exercise a few years ago to my son, who at the time was 8 years old, and he's no more a creative than any other 8-year-old. And I asked him to do exactly this. And in 5 minutes, he came up with 15 ideas. And I thought 2 of those ideas were breathtakingly brilliant. The rest were pretty crap. What you're going to see in a minute is this. You're going to come out with a handful of ideas, maybe 6 in the first minute, and then you're going to hit a brick wall. And you have to start thinking out with the box. You have to stop thinking of it as a pencil and start thinking about the properties of the pencil. Does it have colour? Does it have texture? Can you do anything else with it? And we're going to see saturation of themes. And I'm looking for you to prove that you're better than the average 8-year-old. So I want you all, including you, Johnny, to come up with at least 15 ideas on your own. And I don't think you're going to do that. And because life isn't necessarily fair, I'm going to give you a ticking clock. Because in the world of business, there's always a ticking clock, okay? And because I'm quite an enterprising guy, I'm going to take me a minute to set it up. I'm going to put that ticking clock on the screen just to give you a sense of it. Okay? Coming up with 15 ideas, preferably more, about what you could do with that pencil that doesn't involve it being a pencil. Okay? What could be some? Anyone get any sensible questions about that? Okay? 3, 2, 1, off you go. $30 seconds gone. There's a nice ticking clock just to make you feel all relaxed about the whole process. Johnny's looking really thoughtful. Looking for big things for you, Johnny. You're actually head of business and innovation. No pressure though. Just enjoy yourself.
That means everybody else does it, except not me.
Totally. That's good. I like that. It's good. Delegation is a key enterprising skills, you know. So I'm going to help you a little bit along the way, but not for the first minute. Okay, you get 5 minutes. My son came up with 15. 2 of them are brilliant. It's no better or worse than any other 8-year-old. Oh, and wouldn't you know it, my stopwatch isn't working properly. I'm still at the timeless, guys, so don't worry about it. Keep going. Now, guys, you probably hit the wall now. So you need to be thinking in a different context. So think about the things that you do. It might be that you're interested in leisure. You might be interested in music. You might be interested in travel or food and drink. So how does this pencil help you in that context? Think about it in a different way. See if we can get the thing back up. So we're at 3.5 minutes left. There you go. So coming up in 3 minutes, guys. Johnny, you've hit the wall, haven't you?
No.
Yeah.
No.
We're going to also exclude any ideas that are clearly the same thing. So I'm going to give you one. You could use it as a scratching implement, but you wouldn't say I'm going to scratch my back or I'm going to scratch my leg. That's the same thing. So you're not getting more than one. So if I haven't got scratching implement, you should put that one down. Lee, you could be in a desert island. It's about context. You've got to, it's kind of like the Matrix. You've got to start unseeing the pencil. You've got to think about the properties of the pencil. It's made of wood. It might be a colour, might have a colour as well. Can you do anything with it? Does the wood thing help you? The desert island thing is just one example. It might give you one or two. Shokan, you're giving away all your best ideas in the chat. So you say you could stir your cup of tea with it. That's the thing you would do. What you'd buy on eBay would be a stirring implement. £2.50, buy it now. Yeah. I bet there's very few people that have got in the last coming up 90 seconds that have got 15 or more. It's always interesting when somebody does, but I don't see it very often. Yeah, Mohammed, that's a really good one. That was one of the ones that my son got that I thought was breathtakingly brilliant. So feel free to put your good ideas up here, but if you didn't get them yourself, it doesn't go on your list. I'm interested in doing a straw poll to see what everyone got. By God, Craig, you're organised. Do you know? 15, if I counted it. A mask for a model ship. Lindsay, that's breathtakingly brilliant. Emma, the world's worst weapon, but absolutely it goes on the list. That's good, Rebecca. Flint for a hamster. I'm just going home. That's the best one I've ever seen. I can't discount it because it would work.
Very big hamster.
Well, that's a good point too. You could cut it down. Freeze it in a cup of juice. It's part of an ice lolly. Lee, it's not an ice lolly. It's part of an ice lolly. Yeah, 30 seconds, no pressure. $15. The ruler one's a good one. We've got it. You could use it as a straight edge and you can also use it as a measuring device. How long was it? It was 3 pencils long. Why not? As long as you know what a pencil is. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop writing, stop writing, stop writing, stop writing, stop writing, stop writing, stop writing. Okay, so I'm just going to take the slides off so I can look you all in the face and see who's looking uncomfortable. I want you in the chat to tell me how many you got. Now, Emma, I know from your expression how many you got. I could probably predict how many you got. You got less than 10, Emma, didn't you?
Yeah, I think I got
8.
about 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I'm not telepathic. I could do this all night. So post up, Patrick. I'm looking at you. I'm expecting big things. You too, Johnny. So 23. Okay. And what we'd probably do if I looked at Patrick's idea, a lot of them would be kind of the same thing. So we would probably discount an awful lot of them. Now, I'm not going to go through them all. What I want you to do is this. Can you all in the chat, you're all very different. Male, female, young, old, different ethnicity, different gender. Put on in the chat how many you got. I'm not going to give you a hard time about it. You're going to see a huge range. Mohammed, that's not bad. 12 is probably above average. Kevin, Emma gets 6. We're not saying you're not creative, Emma. We're saying something completely different to that. So look at the chat function. I want to see everybody. If you're in the room, I want to see it there. I want to see you post up, okay? And I want to see what the range is. So, Mohammed, have you got a mic?
Yeah.
Right. You only got 4.
Yeah.
What's going on there? 4 is not a high score, but it doesn't mean you're not creative. Did you get bogged down? Did you run out of idea? Did your brain go blank?
Yeah, kind of.
Right, so that's what happens, yeah. But there's other people doing other things. Now, Craig, we know you're quite a creative guy and you're used to problem solving, right? But the highest score there, and I would probably struggle to come up with that, is Patrick. So, Patrick, I'm a bit loath to give you another opportunity to speak, but you got 23, which is probably the highest score I would ever see. What is going on in your head? Enlighten us.
Well, you know, that's the question, isn't it? I mean,
There's
actually, I've
a lot of
forgotten what's
voices
going
in
on
there.
inside it. No, I just an
Whoa,
axle stirrer.
right, I'm going to pick up on these rolling pin. What are you talking about?
Rolling, let's say rolling a bit of pastry or rolling a bit of pasta.
So
or using that.
the world's least effective rolling pin, but I've got to give it to you. Right?
Marking a point with the stick, you know, so not using it as a pencil, but as a
pointless
something you can put in the ground to mark something, a chopstick.
A measuring device, which is perfect.
Fuel for a fire, a finger splint, a circuit breaker, a paint dabber, a toilet roll holder.
Oh, a paint dabber.
Well, if you wanted to make a shape on, say, a wall, just a tray of paint and just dip the edge of the pencil in it and start stippling the wall with it.
It's an utterly rubbish idea, but it goes on the list here.
Right, plugging a hole, making a hole, as in, so you either stick it in a hole or you make a hole with it.
Right, stop you there. See how one idea leads to another. I can plug a hole and I can make a hole. Yeah. Your wife must love you.
Sure she does. Use it as a very small digging tool. It could be a lever. The one you had before, the scratcher. Smallest dog toy in the world. It's a mini stick. You throw it at the dog and go and fetch it.
I've done it. It's a wonder my dog's still alive. Yeah, I've done it as well. Yeah.
Either a paper, either a kind of paper or a ribbon curler. I've not used it as that, but I've seen people doing it with gifts, where they'll take like a piece of ribbon and roll it around a pencil and pull it, and it makes a nice bow. You know, so that's not me. I've just seen that been done. And then something stupid for me would be a circuit breaker. Stick it instead of something like a fuse. It's not going to. I know wood conducts, but not at a great rate. Tune it, which is pretty poor, and then. Because you were talking about stuff and you know trying to help us out there, I then thought of it maybe as a baton for a composer, and so that's about.
So a conduct, okay. So we get things like weapons and stuff that are pretty grounded. We get the fact that it's wood you can light a fire with it. So if you look in the chat, most of the guys are going to have that as well. We're interested in stuff that's breathtakingly brilliant. Now, most of the stuff that Patrick's got there, you've got. But it's the ones that come later are harder. So you've got to get the crap, no offence, Patrick, you've got to get the crap stuff out the way, first like back scratcher, before you get to the brilliant stuff. And that's what happened with my son. I see it all the time. So I said to my son, what's the best one you've got? And he thought weapon was quite good. And funnily enough, when I did this exercise for the first time, weapon was the first one on my list. So the fact he had it is probably an indictment of my failure as a parent. But the best one he came out with was he went like that. You can use it like that to, because we did a Chinese meal the night before. And I said, he said, chopsticks. And I said, no, it's half of a set of chopsticks because you've only got one thing. That was pretty good for an 8-year-old, I thought. Johnny came out with one. Johnny, what are you putting forward? It's been breathtakingly brilliant. What's that one?
Uncovering secrets on a writing pad.
Fantastic. A wet weekend in Bognor Regis with you, Johnny, is obviously it's just never going to end. That's what I'm talking about, right? We're creating a unique selling point out of something that's really mundane. And my point is this: if we can come out with all these different uses for something as boring, as mundane, as ordinary as a pencil, what could you do with a business model that's actually quite sophisticated? Even a very, very simple product. And that is what we want you to do. Now, don't idea generation stuff in groups if you can. You need to be annoying the people at home so that you can work up your ideas. And if you do that, when we, Patrick and I and my colleagues actually come to look at your business idea, we'll see something that's much better. And that's what you want to be doing. Don't just tell us what a coffee shop is. Tell us why your coffee shop, if that's what you're doing, is different from everybody else who's doing kind of the same thing. And again, desirability, feasibility, and viability. And we want something that's blue sky, but we're not done, okay? We want to be working in groups. We have to generate lots of ideas. The ones that come out quickly and easily are pretty crap and ordinary. We want to be coming out with the ones that come later. There'll be less of them and they'll have more value. this is the process that we're going to look in a bit more detail in the next session next week. And we're going to expand on this. We're going to go through this process towards the end and come up with an idea. It's a lot stronger in workshop 3 as well. And we use this model. It came from an organisation called the Scottish Institute for Enterprise. They come up with this model. We really liked it because we couldn't come up with anything that was any better. It just brings structure to this idea of idea generation. You guys are probably here where you've got a hunch. You get further through the process by speaking to people, doing a little bit of market research, seeing what other people do, and trying to find that bit of innovation around it. Okay. And just to finish, guys, we're right on time. We'll have a couple of minutes at the end for any questions. We're happy to run on if you want to, but we'll finish at about 3. This is the last thing I want you to think about in terms of your idea generation. Don't just give us an application form that explains what a coffee shop does. You need to be thinking about where the value is in your idea. And what I want you to do is think about how you find value in an idea, even if the idea on the face of it looks a bit crap. And this is the best way I've got of getting this across. Now, we use the creativity pool all the time in our modules. This is a website that is basically a place where anyone on the planet can note down their ideas, put their ideas out into the world, and it's for anyone. The ideas themselves are free for anyone to use. And some of the ideas are on the face of it stronger than others, and some of them are definitely fall into the spaced out category. Now, we use these types of activities all the time, but the ones I'm about to show you, I've got 4 examples from different areas, different sectors. These are ones I haven't used before, and I didn't select them. I just picked the first 4 that I found on that website in different areas. So I didn't select them. I wasn't making any judgment about them. I absolutely set out to pick the first 4. I'm not saying they're good or they're bad. I'm saying I want you to tell me whether they tick this feasibility, viability, and desirability box. So just to remind you, desirability is, would people want it? Feasibility is it doable? Can we actually deliver it? And the viability is, can we make money on it? Which is ultimately what you're trying to do in business. You might be wanting to save the world, but you're also looking to make money. So that's what I want you to be thinking of. We want a little bit of innovation of it, but I just want to tell you before we start, don't dive in, be critical. Think about it for 30 seconds. And even if you don't like the idea, is there something valuable about it? Maybe not in the way that they've described, but can we build on their idea or take one part of it? That's what we're interested in. Here's the first one. This is the first one I came across. So I'm just going to read this out in a comic style. Glow-in-the-dark horseshoes. Every country boy and girl loves to play horseshoes no matter what age. No idea what that means. However, when the sun goes down, it's dark. Well, that's what happens when the sun goes down. Everyone still wants to play in the past, and in the past you couldn't, right? However, glow-in-the-dark horseshoes would make it so you can still play, and it would put a twist and make the game more fun, right? Everyone who plays or parties would want a set. I doubt that. But I'm interested in what you think. Yeah, so I want you guys all to give it an out of 10 score. So is it a 1 out of 10? Is it a 10 out of 10? That's what I want you to do very quickly. In your gut, give it a score. And we've got 4 examples of this that we're going to fly through. So just give it a score out of 10, guys. You don't need to put out of 10. I know it's out of 10. Just give me a number. Okay, we're getting some saturation of themes here. Johnny didn't like it. You give it a 1. We've got some 6s and 5s. That's usually the sort of average score that I would see. A lot of low scores as well. Johnny, you gave it a really low score. So tell me why. Why is it a 1, Johnny?
Because I don't believe the premise that every country boy and girl loves to play horseshoes.
Right, so you've got a problem with this one here, right? I don't even know what a country boy or girl is. I don't know what that means. Yeah, I know you've lived in rural parts of America as well. I don't know what a country boy or a girl is. It doesn't really work in Scotland. I don't get it. So you disagree with this premise completely?
Right at the start. Yep.
Right, okay. But if I'm trying to pull you along and get you to think in a different mindset, I don't disagree with what you're saying, right? But do you think that there's some value in this at all? Can I get you to think about that? Yeah, could you agree there's maybe something in the idea?
If the premise is right that people want to play it, then yes.
Right, so let's bin this about the country bit, right? So let's just think about Southwest Scotland where we are, right? So it's glow-in-the-dark horseshoes. If you went into a shop and you saw that there, would you be surprised that it exists?
Yes.
Right. The horseshoe game, would you agree that that's probably grounded? It exists, horseshoes, we've seen it. Yeah, we might not play it, but we've seen it. Would you agree it's grounded?
It was in the 1910s, yeah.
I do get that. There is something about it's not mainstream. It's niche, would you agree?
Maybe we could build an app for it.
That's not bad, but bear with me with this tried and tested in a box model, right?
Okay.
So who might buy that? I know it's not a big niche. Who might buy it if it existed? There's lots of potential answers to it. Who would buy that? Would you ever buy it, Johnny?
No.
Would you buy it as a gift for someone?
No.
Is it novelty? I'm not leading you to a trap. It's all right. I'm genuinely interested in your opinion. Because you're proper old school. I don't think I'd ever buy it.
But yeah.
No, that's why I picture you the best person to ask for that reason. If it existed in a box, we're buying the novelty of it. Would you agree?
Well, there's somebody said parents for children. You know, when you're buying tack for their Christmas stocking, you know, if it was £1.50 in Home Bargains and you thought, well, I need to put something in the stocking, maybe, yeah.
Brilliant, Johnny. That's you falling into my trap. Okay, so you picked up the viability bit because I know you're a numbers guy. I don't think you can make it for that. I think it has to be horseshoe size, I think. And there's maybe it's glow in the dark, and maybe there's flashing parts. I don't think you can make it and sell it for that. I think it would need to be 15 quid. I'm not saying you would buy it. I'm not saying it would put people off. I think you're buying novelty, but I think it could exist in a box. And if I saw it, I wouldn't burst into tears. It feels like a stocking filler. I agree with you completely. I don't think that you could make it and sell it. I think there's a question mark over if you had to sell it at that to make it desirable. I think there's a question mark over it. Yeah, I think that it's maybe got a problem around desirability. I think the viability thing, we could do it. I'm liking what's coming in now, though. Kevin, what are you saying just there? You think there's a different niche? What are you saying?
Yeah, there's a different niche because when you go to fun fairs, for example, like Winter Wonderland in London, and at night, you know, they might buy it, you know, for people to be able to see stuff and throw stuff. You know.
Yeah, it's not bad, but it's not a commercial thing. They would probably want something a bit more industrial. They might even have horseshoes and a stick. The glow-in-the-dark thing gives you a bit of extra novelty. But I like that, Kevin. We didn't have that before. Lee, I'm not letting you off the hook either. So, equestrian people, do you mean actually get horseshoes to glow in the dark?
Yeah, so I googled it because I was like, what is the horseshoe game? And it's basically just you get old horseshoes and fling them at a stick.
That's essentially it, yeah.
Right. So I don't think that idea is redundant. I feel like for a game, yes, but I also feel like the product is quite useful. I don't know if people like farmers maybe, or people who are like into horse riding, if they want to school or go hacking when it's like the dark evenings or something just now, yeah. I feel like they would find benefit from the product, but I feel like it's not something that you would buy just to
totally. So somebody put this idea in, and Johnny's right. On the face of it, it looks a bit rubbish. It looks as if we wouldn't buy it, and I get that. But Kevin and Lee are quite rightly identifying that not only might be there are other niches for it, but there might be other uses that came out of this idea. Lee, I'm pretty sure you don't spend any time thinking about whether horseshoes should go in the dark or not.
No, but I have friends that do.
That's it. So yeah. if you're on the fringe of the equestrian bit, you think, well, wait a minute here. Maybe there's an opportunity that came out of this idea. It only came out the idea because someone gave us the idea. So what I'm wanting you to do is look at it and try and see past the crap and see if there's anything of value. I like that. So we're moving on. That's what I want. That's the process, guys. Right? Most people detest folding clothes because you have to repeat it on a daily basis. I get that. Why not let the clothes fold themselves? Totally lost. There is this stuff called memory wire. I've Googled it. It's a thing. Through the process of heating and cooling a wire, it's given the ability to revert to a specific shape if it's heated up. That's not exactly what I saw, but there's some truth in that. We can make fabric made from a mesh of memory wire and then sell things that activate the wire. So let's be clear, guys. It's not, I thought this was about ironing. It's not. It's about a shirt that folds itself. That's what it's doing. So give it a score out of 10, what we've based on it. Now, he's identified or she's identified themselves at the bottom. There's an issue around viability. So we need to do more research. Lee's going straight in at 7. Rebecca's given it a more cautious 6. But there's lots more. Craig, you hate this, but we've established you're an engineer. Do you think that it wouldn't work, that it's not feasible? Is that what you're thinking, Craig?
I just hate the thought that I'd be working so hard that I'd heat up and that thing would fold in on me and I'd fold myself into a shape or something. I don't know.
See that? I like that. There's something, joking aside, right? In our gut, there are question marks over desirability. Would you agree?
Well, I think it's health and safety. If it folds when it gets to a certain temperature,
Spoke like an engineer. There's a health and safety aspect to anything, including your glow-in-the-dark horseshoes. If you're throwing metal horseshoes about in the dark, you really need to have a like good look at yourself, even if they glow in the dark. So there's something about this here, but there's no doubt Johnny gave it a 1. There's no doubt that if you create something that saves people time, that is a huge potential value proposition. If you also remove a task that is onerous and labour intensive and can't be done by a machine currently, that is also a potential thing that separates you from everybody else. If you pick this idea and you come to us with an application form for the business ideas competition, good luck. I don't necessarily expect to see you in the room come the final, but if you execute the idea well, there's no reason why you couldn't. So we didn't really like that one. So next question, guys. This is when we start to get it, Lee, you're getting it. Can we find anything of value in this? Anything?
I think the accessibility thing is quite a big deal. Like, I feel like people only think about their needs when it comes to products, but then don't realise like other people have like obviously different needs, different abilities. So maybe people with like, I don't know, restricted mobility or disability, whatever, they would benefit from things like that, because tasks, like everyday tasks that we think, oh, it's just boring, can't be bothered, are tasks that we generally find a bit more laborious, even though there's like, you would think, oh, it's just folding clothes, but to them that probably takes quite a lot of energy. Yeah,
there's a huge market, Lee, for people who are scunnered or people who don't want to do that task, things that we would try and get a machine to do, but maybe we couldn't. So it's a huge market if you can find something, but it's hard to get these things down on paper because you have to do a lot of research. But we're not done. Look at this one. I found it as it was, no more or no less. This is what somebody wrote down. A human being wrote this idea down. Animal flavoured gum. And I was talking about this with Patrick the other day. Taste only the external general essence of an animal's exterior. I'm not sure what that means. Like placing your tongue on the outer surface of a live cow, because we've all done that. So you're jumping in with the ones, right? I get that, right? And it's perfectly instinctive and it's perfectly logical. I'm not arguing with it. And I agree that there's the desirability is there, but it lacks in feasibility. I'm not, is it Adisatkur? You gave it a 3. If you've got a mic, what do you mean that it's desirable? Why would it be desirable? What's desirable licking a cow? Johnny's given it a 10. Are you just been hilarious, Johnny?
No.
Go on. Let's hear it.
Any of you Harry Potter fans? Yes. And some of them are earwax flavour and whatever. And they sell those things. There's a market, they sell them. I don't mean that just in the show, that you can go out and buy Bertie Bott's any flavoured beans. And folks take the risk of eating a sweetie that tastes like earwax. This would fit
it's a novelty gift you're talking about, yeah. Now that's one way of doing it. Now I look at this and I think that's the worst idea I've ever seen. If there was something beyond spaced out, this is in it. But when I start to apply this process, I start to see that maybe it's not as cut and dried as that. So Lindsay's come out with jelly beans of weird flavours now. Now I get that this is really, really different, but it's not actually about whether you like it or not, Johnny. Would you agree? It's about the novelty and the experience, and everything's about, Johnny's nodding. So it's about the experience in any product or service now. You have to have an experience element to it, in the same way you have to have a digital element to your business. So there's something about it. So even Emma, who's coming out saying, I suppose it's a bit different. I'm not saying, Emma, you're really, really set in your ways. And then Lindsay's giving us a little bit more context. You only get this when you work in groups. Remember, when deep fried Mars bars came out, new experience, novelty, I'm going to try that. So there's something about that, okay? So it's easy to give it a 1. It's not so easy to give it a 10 and find the market. So Johnny, I'm with you in this one. This is the last one, guys, and then we'll wind up. All driver speed. Again, there's a premise that you may or may not agree with. We all do it. Now, what they're trying to do here, if you just read it, is they're using a stick approach to punish you for doing something that's undesirable for society, but that we all do, which I would argue we do. I don't think anyone's not driven above the speed limit, even unintentionally around that. Some people do it routinely, and I get that. So it's a huge problem, but it's also a huge market. And if it works in Swindon, it would work in Sweden or Swansea. So it would work anywhere. It's transferable, which means it's a massive market if you can come up with a solution here. And you might want to come up with something like this for the business ideas competition, but you have to research it. So my point is this: I want an out of 10 score for this. This guy's suggesting that you hand over your credit card details when you get your license. And if we've got the technology, I think, to do it, pretty sure we do, you're just going to be automatically billed if you go a second over the speed limit, 1 mile an hour, 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. I think I know why you gave it a 0 lead, but I'm going to see if one of the other guys gives us the same thing. I get that. There's probably an issue around getting society to tolerate this, and I get that. Okay. I want to see some other scores, guys. So Johnny's given it a 5. We've got some problems around feasibility, I think. Lindsay, you've given it a 6. You've given a few 6s, Lindsay. It might just be the way you view risk. What is it you think isn't desirable about it, Lindsay? Because I suspect that's a problem.
It kind of makes sense that, if it's an easier way of doing it, you handle your credit card, everyone is probably treated the same, all the cars have got the same technology, so you can't almost get out of it. Like in the right so from a safety point of view and probably for fairness, then this would mean that everyone would be treated the same because the technology would be in the car and there's nobody getting out of it, sort of thing.
Remember what Lindsay's saying, because you're going to see this in a second, right? There's something in it, right? So the 6 we can work with, that's what I'm talking about. Even if it's 1 out of 10, we're interested in why it wasn't 0, we're interested in 1. Lindsay highlighted quite a good things here, but look at this. So I went out and completely cold. I found the closest things I could, just to finish, guys, the closest things I could to those 4 ideas I picked at random. This is the closest I could find, okay? And these are all real-life products that are on the market. You can decide whether you like them or not. There's your glow-in-the-dark horseshoe game. Unsurprisingly, to me, it felt that it would already exist. It's a novelty. It's a stag do. It doesn't really matter whether you're a country boy or girl or whatever. There's something there. Lindsay, I've still got you on screen. If you bought it, how much would you pay for it? Yeah.
Probably about 10, 15 quid.
I would say that too. If it was 10 or 15 quid, if it was 10, you'd probably sell more. Could you make it for that? I think you probably could. It feels like it's not a high quality thing. I wouldn't be surprised if your kids broke it in the first few weeks.
Yeah. I mean, you could do it in pubs as well. Pubs that have got an outdoor garden, you could have that for night and stuff. It's got sort of a lasting sector
now
that
that
can maybe use it.
See it and touch it, you're starting to identify other things. But we can also visualise the thing we was talking about if you bunged proper horseshoes on it, you can make them glow in the dark. Maybe there's something in it. Kevin said 6 to 10. I think it looks a wee bit. I think it's probably 10 quid. I think it looks no bad. It doesn't look particularly robust, but there's something in that. I didn't connect these two things. I just went out and looked cold. That, believe it or not, it's a laundry folding machine. Who knew? You put stuff in at the top and it comes out like that. Now, it's not ironing, it's folding. So I don't know what the top bit looks like because I couldn't find it. But if I did a bit more research, I would see that there. Now, if I ironed it for you and it was a couple £100, take my money. I've got a watch sitting here. I'll buy that because I'm the only guy in my house that does the ironing. Do it for the whole family. And it's boring and it's monotonous and I hate it. So something like that would give me a will to live back might be of interest. But I can understand how, if maybe in a hotel, that's maybe a thing. Idea 3, camel balls gum. Like, you're laughing, Lindsay, but it's exactly what Johnny was talking about. Unmute your mic, Lindsay. I'm not saying you'd buy a lot of that, but we're not saying it tastes like that.
No, you would buy it. I got toxic
yes.
sour chews for my Christmas one year in a sort of 1980s retro sweet pack, and I've still got them, and they were horrible.
Aye.
But I still kept eating them because they were so horrible. You had to keep trying. So
yeah, of our age used to get these joke sweets, and one of them tasted like dirt. I wouldn't know. I've not really eaten dirt, so I've got no frame of reference. Lindsay, I don't know if you unmuted your mic there. Were you going to comment on this?
I was just thinking, remember when chocolate flavoured crisps came out as well, and everybody was buying them, and then the taste kind of worn off after a while.
Aye, and it's like squirrel flavoured crisps. If you've ever eaten squirrel as I have, it just tastes like chicken. But the point is, it's the novelty bit. It's exactly what Johnny was talking about. He hadn't seen this. Now, no one's suggesting it has to taste like the animal. We're saying this idea almost certainly came out of an idea like the one that was presented to us about animal tasting things. I agree, it's a joke present, it's a stocking filler type thing. Last one. Lindsay, I don't know if this is a good example of what you were talking about. This is all pretty grounded now, but 10 years ago it wasn't. So Lindsay McDonald, instead of what we've said is we turn it on its head, instead of using a stick, why don't we use a carrot? Now, I did a little bit of research around this. I'm obviously in the cheaper insurance bracket because I'm 50. I was 50 yesterday. So I don't pay a lot for my car insurance because I've not had any crashes since I started driving in my late 20s. But this is an incentive. Thanks, Lindsay. This is an incentive for people mainly within the 18 to 25 age group who are highly risky to get usually about 200 quid a year off their premium. And it's now pretty grounded. Most of them do it. Most of them actually use this. Now, so most insurance companies have this black box thing. They put a device in your car, and if you get good readings from it around speed and acceleration and the time of night you're driving, which apparently is a high risk factor, I didn't know, then based on that, they'll review it every year, and they quite often knock money off your insurance premium. That's quite a big deal. That's a huge market. It would work anywhere. And this is pretty grounded now. 10 years ago, this was absolutely cutting edge. And all I'm saying is, it's better if you can use a carrot and pull people in for your business idea than use a stick and tell them why you're better than everybody else. Yeah. Now, guys, all I was looking to do is give you a bit of insight into how idea generation bit anyway, and suggest ways in which we can do that better. Now, if I've done that, give me some yeses in the chat. And if I haven't done that, give me some no's that I'm not really sure, whatever. We like feedback, even if the feedback is you didn't do a particularly good job, Alan. I'm quite happy to put that in. What I want you to do is, we're going to fairly soon, with a parting word from Emma before we finish. I didn't want to run that over too much. We're 5 minutes over. Next week, we'll build on this ideas you've got. We put more meat on the bones. And then in the third session, in a couple of weeks, we'll be aligning that to the application for the Business Awards programme as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about other services like business incubation, which we're starting to introduce to university as well. So guys, hopefully that's given you a little bit of insight into how we do things normally. What you should be doing is go away, say you had a coffee shop, that was your idea for a business. Completely approach the process in a completely different way, using the techniques that I talked about, and Emma will be happy to, I think, to share the slides with you as well. She's got them. Work through the process and see if at the end, in half an hour over a couple of cups of coffee, whether you come out with a better version of your coffee shop using the techniques. Okay, so Emma, over to you. I think you had a couple of things you wanted to say just to finish up, did you?
Yeah, just thanks everybody for coming along. I hope you enjoyed it today. As Alan mentioned, next week we will have our creativity and innovation workshop again on Wednesday, 1 to 3 p.m. So if you want to come along to that. Also, anybody who's signed up for the in-person event, we'll keep you updated with how things go. It might just be the case that it's online again. I'll also send over a copy of the slides, a link to this session as well. And I'll also send over mine and Alan's emails as well, in case you've got any questions that you never got to ask.
So yeah, thanks again for coming.